X is a 2022 slasher film written, directed, produced, and very unusually edited by Ty West. So, jack of all trades, and I would say master of all of them. This is a film that I can wholly recommend, and I'm genuinely looking forward to the prequel, which I haven't actually seen yet, titled Pearl, and a sequel film, which is currently in development, called Maxine, with 3 X's. This film stars Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, Martin Henderson, Brittany Snow, Owen Campbell, Stephen Ure, and Scott Muscudi, who also served as the co-executive producer on the film. This film centres around our main cast gathering together to make a porno. They do this on an old couple's rural Texas property, and they may have lied to them ever so slightly. And they may, perhaps, be all murdered by an unlikely killer. This film was actually, randomly, something which I was very surprised to read, filmed in New Zealand, with production primarily in Fordham, and its score was composed by Tyler Bates and Chelsea Wolfe. This is a movie which I should have actually watched when it came out, and I don't know why I didn't. It's very, very well shot. It's very well edited. It's very well written. It has a very tight structure. The pacing just works very, very well. We start at the end of the film, or at the end of the linear sequence of events. So it's put together out of sequence, and we sort of come backwards and forwards. Well, the start is the end, and then we go to the meat of the issue 24 hours earlier of our sort of band of leads gathering together. Now, this film is somewhat predictable in certain aspects. You know, our slasher films, I would say, are actually better when some of our predictions are paid off. You know, in this film, for instance, we see a alligator in a pond. Now, obviously, keen eyes would go, one of them's going to die with that alligator, and it would be sad if that didn't happen. Okay, so I like a film where some of the deaths are payoffs of our predictions. And so this film is predictable in a certain aspect, but I tell you what, I was not expecting our killers to be who they were. Now, I'm trying to talk about it as non-spoilery as possible. But to talk about the sequel and the prequel of this film, you kind of have to go into slight spoilers. But I will say that the killers, because I'm not going to reveal who they were, but the killers and the motivation behind their murders was not something I was going to be expecting here. Now, everyone actually does an incredible job in this film. Mia Goth as Maxine, or Max, is great. A really, really good lead, and someone who is subsequently actually going to be in the prequel film called Pearl, and of course the sequel film Maxine. It's someone who I'm not familiar with. I've not seen her in other things, but I'm genuinely interested in what she has coming up, and especially these other films. I think she is a standout. I think she's very, very good. Jenna Ortega, who is now actually Netflix's Wednesday, Wednesday Addams, I don't think I'm ever going to look at her again in the same way, because we see her stripped down to her underwear. And definitely not going to be looking at her in the same way. But she does a good job as a church mouse, as it were, in this film. Brittany Snow plays our sort of predictable blonde, not really a bimbo. She's sort of quick-witted and sharp. And her death was very, very, very fun. All the deaths in this film, in fact, are very, very fun. And they are put together in a way where you sort of expect some of them, but some of them were not to be expected. And because of the people perpetrating the murders, you really do go, oh, Jesus, okay, wow, oh, yep, that's shocking, wow, okay. And then when you see how they've been put together and the motivation behind those murders, yeah, wow, it's something else. I'm not familiar with Ty West and his other works. but it's someone that I want to look out for in future. This film was unnerving. It wasn't exactly a straight up horror flick. It was brutal, gory, and again, most of all unnerving and really awkward at certain points. You know, there is an extended sequence where you're watching essentially 90-year-olds having sex, and it was quite disgusting. I get it. Everyone wants to do stuff when they're, you know, at any age. I get it. I'm not interested in looking at it. It's gross. I'm sure most people share the same sentiment, all right? Unless you're, you know, maybe a necrophiliac. But it was interesting overall. And in terms of how this film obviously came to be and scoping it out as a trilogy, that I think is the most interesting element. And actually having someone who will be playing different characters, not in each film, but in two of the films, Pearl and X, and then Maxine. One of them is playing, Mia Goth will be playing a completely different individual in Pearl. And that, I think, is probably the best setup. And again, it's just a great film, very tight, great music, great set pieces. To know that it was filmed in New Zealand, I think, is potentially the best element of this film. Not something I was expecting to learn. And believe it or not, I guess New Zealand is a great stand-in for Texas, it seems to be. So I can wholeheartedly recommend this film. And it's one of those films which I should have watched a lot sooner. Late to the table on this. And that's just my bad. Loads of people kept banging on about this film, and I never got round to watching it in theatres. And I wish I had. And I'm quite jealous of the individuals that did. Great film, very tight. Can strongly recommend. And now, obviously, Pearl has been released. I will now be watching that and probably giving you, hopefully, a Mr. H recommends on that movie, because this is what this is. Mr. H recommends. Because, you know, everyone keeps telling me I don't release, you know, positive movie reviews. So I thought I'd just do this for the sake of it. But anyway, guys, if you have seen it, I'd love to know what you thought. And whether you thought it was as good as me. I know a lot of people really like this film. So I'd be interested to see. Anyway, cheers, guys. Take care.